one member used to stay on that board for 39 years. Virtually every board in the county has a commissioner on that board, or assigned to attend the board meeting. The library has none. So there's significant differences. If we look at the library board as opposed to probably 10 or 12 other boards in the county, there's substantial differences in those boards. So there was an indication, a need to revisit the bylaws of the Randolph County Library Board, and it came up during this whole process.
The idea that, Mr. Chairman, is to point parliamentary, is the hearing closed?
Yes,
Is that we need to?
we said 2 hours.
Okay, I just want to make sure the hearing is closed.
We are closed.
Hearing is closed. I think there's a significant difference in opinion whether or not it's censorship. The book has not been removed. And many of the people, I think virtually every email I got or on that phone mail said we're taking the book out of the library. That's not the case at all. To put it in a more appropriate place. For me, and this board can speak, we can have a motion, and we can have a discussion, or they can make comments. It just so happened when the ballgame went on last night, 60 Minutes came on CBS. They're not exactly noted for being a real conservative reporter. And it was about a 13-year-old girl who had been subjected to a character AI person who was contacting that girl about sex. Bad sex, physically harmful sex. They interviewed one of the companies that specialized in making a fortune off of AI. And they said they were getting rich doing it, and it's very, very beneficial. But then they said, quote, we know it's both dangerous and harmful, but we're doing it anyway. This whole thing for me is about the child and exposing the child when that child is not ready to make those choices. I lived it in my family. Last Monday, the first of this month, I had a grandson who had turned 27 years old. 10 years ago, from this coming February, he decided that life wasn't worth living. And I was in the road trying to get him to get in the car. He climbed up on the bridge over Interstate 85 in Archdale, jumped off, was immediately hit by a car going 80 miles an hour, knocked 145 feet down the interstate, where he laid for 3.5 hours till the folks came there to do the checking, traffic detour. He had been brainwashed. This is not about transgender, changing my sex. This was about just being brainwashed in social media. But it points out the gullibility of a young child who's not capable of making those choices, those decisions. He was taken for treatment and given medication. On the dispenser bottle, and my wife still has it, I told her to throw it away. On the dispenser bottle, it says it can create suicidal tendencies in young children, teens and young adults. On the prescription bottle that they gave him to treat his illness. So, I've seen, it's about controlling the mind of the child before it's ready. So it's become personal for me. It's become an issue that obviously this board has to deal with, and that's what we're about here tonight.
Are
youth are being brainwashed. We need to pay more attention to them, be more careful about it, not to make them so readily available to the influences that they're not ready for. There's been lots of scripture quoted here tonight. I have some of my own. I'm not gonna do, but, that guides my thoughts, in the matter. So, with that,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 153A77A that we as the Randolph County Board of Commissioners adopt a resolution assuming direct control of the Randolph County Board of Library Board of Trustees, and the existing Board of Trustees are hereby relieved of their duties in their official capacity, and we also, the existing bylaws of Randolph County Library Board of Trustees are hereby dissolved.
Second.
got a motion and a second. Now we'll have discussion.
I'd like to say that that is a motion I cannot support. I think we do need to look at policies. I think we do need to do what a county near us has done and look at other boards that we have. And I think this issue has shown a lot of light on that. There was discussion at our last meeting around board appointments for the Board of Health. And yet, interest in that came so late that, there just was not a lot of time to really do work that needed to be done. I'm not a person that likes to rush to make change. I'm like my father, Reverend Preach, Gene Booker, and I believe you know him. But my dad tried to do several things and difficult decisions he made throughout his ministry. And that was to be firm, to be fair, to be Christ-like, and not to make himself look better by making someone else look worse. These are tough issues. It does not matter what my personal belief is on these issues. What matters is, did the board follow the policies and procedures? And yes, they did. So that says to me that we need to look at some of those, and maybe we need to look at changing the way, as Chairman Frye has said, maybe we need to look at changing some things, not just about that board, but about others. So for instance, can we take applications? Can we advertise positions? Can we have applications that more thoroughly reflect the qualifications of people to serve on the boards? Can we create a database so that we have more representation from across the county per some of Commissioner Rivenbark's comments? And getting greater representation. I think all of that is important. But I think I personally would support giving some thought to a plan to go forward, and perhaps do what this county did back in June of this year, when they looked at all of their advisory type boards and made some changes that apply to all of them. So that, I think, would be wise. But to completely abolish a board for implementing what we have in place, that does not align with what is the appropriate way to go about solving an issue. So, bring about positive change, have dialogue, yes. Be willing to use issues that come up to be better, yes. But to abolish a board when they have looked at something, I'm sorry, we have too many boards that, are trying to do good work, and maybe I would have done it differently, that's not the issue. So, I just cannot support that motion.
Discussion?
All that motion.
Well,
Well, it's time for discussion and debate.
yeah, I don't think there's any question that they followed policies that were in place. That's never crossed my mind that they didn't follow policies. The problem is they don't represent the values of Randolph County and the citizens of Randolph County. That's the problem I have. They're not representative of the majority of the Randolph County citizens. Talk to them. They don't know what's put in there. They don't know what looks like it in there. Because that's the stand I'm taking on.
I usually, speak, I'm not very eloquent, not near as eloquent as I like. Maybe if I'd gone to the library more, I'd be more eloquent about that. Mr. Chairman, I disagree, I think there is some middle ground that we can get to. But I'm disappointed that this has become such a divisive issue. I usually don't write things out, I didn't know. Because I want to make sure I cover everything. I wish we were as passionate about some other things we are about this tonight. I know there's passion on the side, but we got a lot of other issues. We got housing issues. We got homeless. I know a lot of you work in there, but I wish this passion could be placed in a couple other places rather than about trying to talk about one single book, I've heard insurance housing book. And everybody's claiming the moral high ground. And I, in the past 11 years, have tried to work with people on the Hills to try to come to some sort of consensus and compromise. But for me, this is not about a book, and I'll get into that a little bit later. To me, it's about procedure and it's about precedent. And what we're doing tonight is removing a board in its entirety. Statute states and indicates that individual board members can be removed for 4 causes or issues. So if you take those 4 issues and put them to the entire board, I think you can come up with that same reason. Those 4 reasons are incapacity, unfitness for position, misconduct, neglect of duty. Now, for what reason are we dissolving that board if you take those 4 factors? I may not personally agree with the decision of the board because I think there have been other options, but I have learned as an elected official, sometimes you must put the public good above oneself and your personal beliefs. It's kind of ironic, 4 years ago today, I had to make a decision about something that's affected my life every single day that I live in my home. When Toyota was coming, personally, it has not benefited me. But I voted to support that decision, even though it takes me now 20 miles to get to Liberty and back. When before, it only took me about 8. It's been an inconvenience. But I wouldn't change a thing, because my vote that night, in hindsight, was the best for what was overall good for the county. I'm not patting myself on, I'm gonna step on some toes tonight, and I'm stepping on mine too. I'd also like to remind the board that 4 members of this board have, appointed all the members of the current library board without comment up to this point. Why is it happening now? Because of one decision which outweighs years of service and hundreds of other decisions? Sure, I agree the bylaws and the ordinances needs review, needs to be changed. You know, I presented that, I'll talk a little bit to the county manager about that, you know, about the, having a commissioner on the board and also, changing the meeting time, even the board makeup as far as the districts, decreasing the number of years, terms from 6 to 3. But there are other ways to do this other than just dissolving the board. I mean, you can take the current board, just have all the terms. But what are we looking to do? I don't think it's prudent to act without having a solution. I don't think this board needs to be the library. These changes can be reviewed and implemented in time, but not in a knee-jerk reaction. I often tell people, the good thing about government is that it moves slow. The bad thing about government, it also moves slow. But in this case, what's the rush? Especially when it's taken 4 months, as was mentioned before, on the public health board. I've been told that, tonight even, that if I don't vote the right way, I'll have a primary vote to replace me, in the primary this spring. So this is also political. It's more about library board, it's more about power, it's about control. And I expect here, what I'm speaking about tonight, probably is gonna be used against me for political advantage, and that's fine. I'm fine to go home, I'm fine to serve out my term. I'll go home and mess with my bees. And not have the responsibility if that's what the electorate wants. That's politics. But politics for the good of the people should end when we walk through those 2 doors back there. Removing the library board in its entirety sets a horrible precedent. If a commissioner or commissioners disagree with the decision of a particular board, we gotta have precedent to move the entire board en masse without question or reason. Zoning board, animal services, social services, board of adjustment, all those boards. How would that impact the quality of that board's expertise? Good qualified people will not be willing to serve because of looming threat of criticism all up to dismissal. I hope you get the idea. We need to encourage the best people to serve, not discourage them. It's hard enough as it is, and we don't need to make it harder for people to serve. What about continuity? Do we need a new board that has absolutely no experience whatsoever? Do we stagger terms for all our other boards and committees? The reason we do that is continuity. Without it, there'll be chaos. Speaking from a financial standpoint, point of view and use of resources, how much time has been spent and effort on this single issue? We've had meetings, we've had records requests, we've had security for the night, we've had planning. All this is, we got all these other things going on in the county. Workforce retention, water and sewer projects, projects at ag centers, school funding, economic development, renewable natural gas out of the landfill, opioid funding, and on and on and on. And this is what we deem important, is to take a board and dissolve it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Do we need to review how we appoint our boards? Yes, we do. Do we need to find a better process for qualifying our individuals for our boards? Not just the library board, but all boards? Yes. Do we need to tailor applications to specific boards rather than have one generic applications? I think so. I'd rather have a pool of candidates to pull from than have to go hunt and find someone for a position. I saw a Facebook post a month or so ago where somebody had posted pictures of a snake that was outside of their window. probably looking to get some bird eggs up in the edge of the house. The comment was something to the effect of, go ahead and call the fire and park the truck now because my house is gonna be burned down. We don't need to panic and burn the house down. We need a solution before we create another problem. There's been no framework proposed, so we'll be opening, operated by a safety net. What expertise does this board, new board, would they have? What does this board have? In contrast to the current board that has years of experience, education, knowledge in the field of library science. There has not been presented a clear path forward to eliminate one board that has fulfilled its obligation and duty, but made one bad decision that we didn't agree with. So that's the reason I can't. I've probably stepped on a lot of toes tonight. I've stepped on mine. If I didn't step on yours, reach down to your neighbor and show them compassion, help them, and advantage for their toes. But I can't support eliminating.
Mr. Chairman, I won't be here all night, so I'm gonna try to be brief, so forgive me if I'm not brief, but, I mean, it's been said, up here on this side of things, there's some tough decisions to be made, and this is a tough issue. I don't think it's tough at all. I don't think it's tough at all. I think I told my wife in this meeting, I got real peace about it, because I honestly feel like I'm doing the right thing. I mean, what matters to this county, I tell you what matters is right and wrong, and darkness and white, and good and evil. That's what matters, and this is a black and white issue. There's a dividing line here, and, I mean, yeah, we need to work on who we appoint boards and commissions. We need to appoint people to boards and commissions that represent the values of Randolph.
Yes, sir.
That's the kind of people that are Republican board of commissioners in the most conservative county in North Carolina. They ought to be appointing people that represent this community to boards and commissions.
Yep.
And we talk about all the time and resources spent on this meeting. You know, something that's pretty important to me is the soul of our children in this country. Is their soul. So I have no problems doing all this. I don't think it's a hard issue. I think it's an easy issue. It's an issue in right and wrong. And I gave the board of trustees of this library, and I'm pretty sure this whole board did not call any of those board members, did not call any of those trustees, and I don't think any of us called the director of the library and tried to influence them either way. We let them, as they're appointed, make the decision that they felt they needed to make and do whatever they thought they needed to do. I didn't interfere with them at all. But when you come up with that decision to put our children at risk in this county, and yeah, I have no problem at all excusing those folks and letting them retire.
Any other discussion?
No, I'd just like to point out some of the other things that are done by our libraries. I know that they have programming and collaboration in public schools, Christian schools, with homeschools. I do believe that they stock books for biographies when biographies are required. And so there are other ways that they do that. They provide services for adults and seniors as well as children. They do art activities. They have the navigators in the libraries for helping to get social services to people who don't know how to go about getting services, people who feel like that's a safe place to go. They host food distributions. They sponsor reading programs through the libraries. I had a young parent who told me recently after church about how meaningful it had been for their summer and how much progress the child had made because of the participation research-based STEM activities to promote reading. The program for preschoolers. They have reached out to private schools offering to tailor the mobile library for their needs. They're doing a strategic plan, and in that strategic plan, 751 responses indicated that people felt like our libraries were safe places. And so I would just say that when we're interested in children, we don't even think about defunding that. We try to reach a reasonable solution to bring about change.
This is a lot bigger than one book. I keep hearing one book, call me Max, one book, one book. There's over 40 titles in our public library right now that address to children that talk about transgenderism in all of our public libraries, including our mobile library, which goes out to schools. I keep hearing kids have to have a parent. Parents aren't at schools when these mobile libraries go out there. There's a private school in this county that told the mobile library, you are not welcome here anymore because of the books that you have on this mobile library.
There's several.
There's several. This is bigger than one book. This is a lot bigger than one book.
All right. That's the children. I heard we'll make one last. All right, Board Attorney has been with us and beside us through this entire process. We followed his legal decisions. All right, those in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Motion passes 3-2.